Jana Tigranyasya, Jana Jana Salakaya, Chakshu Mritam Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam, Sthapitam Yena Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kadabayam Dadati Swakarantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Smita Padakamala, Sri Guru Vaisnavamscha, Sri Rupa Sargajatam, Sadhana Vijnatam Vidantam Sativa, Sadvitam, Savadutam, Parijana Sahitam, Krishna Chaitanya Deva, Sri Radha Krishna Pada, Sadhana Lalita, Sri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosati, Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamani Hari Hari. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhakti Srimati Bhakti Swami Nidhi. Namaste Krishna Padaya Bhakti Sutrakani Sri Guru Karuna Shakti Bhakti Nidhi. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhakti Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nidhi. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nidhi Shunyavadi Pachacharya Chacharya. Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gora Chise Namaha. Ananda Liyamaya Vigrahaya Himabhya Vidacharya Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasapidaya Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Chaitanya Chandaya Namo Namaste. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So in 2015, that's my first time of seeing most of you. So Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So today, week 46, Sri Namamrita, Nectar of the Holy Name. Hand out. The Nectar of the Holy Name. First sentence, chanting Hare Krishna mantra brings one to the point of full surrender to the lotus feet of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada said, gradually the Hare Krishna mantra purifies us. And in purification, we come to the point of realizing that we have to surrender fully. So one of the 9 processes, the last one is Atma Nivedanam, surrendering everything, surrendering fully to the lotus feet of Krishna. So the message here is, if you're chanting, keep chanting. If you haven't, get started. Try hard to pay attention when chanting. Try hard to pay attention. You have to try hard because the mind never really wants to pay attention. It likes to roam. But if you can pull the mind back to the holy name, the Prabhupada said, you're making progress then. So pay attention to chanting. Also, we are in the material world. In the material world, no matter how comfortable we think we feel, it is still a house of correction. Nobody is comfortable in the material world. We just think we are. Sometimes we can compare ourselves to others and say, well, we have more than others do. Therefore, we're all right. Well, we're relatively all right. Compared to them, we are. Compared to them, we're better off. A little better off. But not really. So chant in desperation, understanding that we're away from our real home, which is with Krishna and the Buddha. So chant out of desperation and understand that our situation never ultimately improves in the material world, never ultimately improves. So we are in illusion thinking that we are. But actually the only way is to get out. The only way is to get out. And the means to get out is through chanting. Because Lord Chaitanya said, Harinam, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasti, Eva Nasti, Eva Nasti, Eva Gati Anyata. So in this most degraded age of Kali Yuga, there is no other way, no other way than chanting the holy name of the Lord, chanting the holy name of the Lord, chanting the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, back to the handout. When Haridas Thakur had an encounter with a prostitute, the idea was that there were some people that were planning to invade the devotion of Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was chanting the holy names of the Lord many more times than we do. At some point he was chanting 192 rounds. We only do 16, so we're nowhere close to how many rounds he was doing. 169 rounds, 300,000 names of the Lord. And a few people in authority trying to break Haridas Thakur's devotion made the plan of, or came up with the plan of distracting him with a prostitute. So there were a number of prostitutes that met, and they chose one particular prostitute to go to Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur did not kick the prostitute out. He just said, wait, I know why you're here, but I have to finish chanting my rounds, because if I don't chant my rounds and finish it, then I get in Maya. But the prostitute was actually an agent of Maya right in front of him. But he kept chanting, and because that number of rounds goes into the night, this has some short time, have some facade, but it goes into the night, so the prostitute was getting more and more in anxiety, impatient. When will this man finish? So he kept chanting and chanting and chanting, and the prostitute finally had to go home for the night because it was too late. And Haridas Thakur said, come tomorrow. I'll try to finish sooner so that you and I can enjoy it. So the prostitute returned. And sure enough, Haridas Thakur was back chanting his rounds. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this went on for 3 days without the prostitute getting an opportunity to do what she wanted to do. But at the same time, the prostitute was waiting. And at the time she was waiting, she was hearing the holy name the whole time. So she gets bombarded by the holy name the first day, 300,000 names of Krishna, goes back, comes back, gets another 300,000. Now the holy name can work on us. All of it going into her soul. So by the third day, she actually was having a change of mind. And now the whole time she was there, she was being purified. So by the third day, she actually opened up and told Haridas Thakur why she came and what the plan was to break his devotion. Haridas Thakur said, I already knew. I already knew your intention here. Now I also knew you were coming. So some of these highly empowered devotees can see into the future. And he said, I could have left this place before you came, but because I knew you were coming, I waited for you. So this was the mercy of Haridas Thakur to change the heart of this prostitute. And so he told the prostitute to quit her job, you can call it a job, and to take the holy name of the Lord, sell all the paraphernalia that she was using for the job, her things that she was dressed up in, get rid of all of that and start chanting the holy name. And so she did that. So Haridas Thakur became the guru for her, and she started chanting the holy name. Now in this handout, so Haridas Thakur, among other things that he said to the prostitute, he said, chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra continuously and render service to the Tulsi plant by watering her and offering prayers to her. In this way, you will soon get the opportunity to be sheltered at the lotus feet of Krishna. So the two major things says chant Hare Krishna continuously. And Srila Prabhupada said when we do japa, we should chant Hare Krishna a minimum of 16 rounds. Haridas Thakur is saying to the reformed prostitute, chant the Hare Krishna mantra continuously. So the 16 rounds, Srila Prabhupada, the key word said is minimum. So usually you can chant 16 rounds minimum, but you can chant more than that. Or, like what she's being told here, chant all day. So if you use your bead bag to chant 16 rounds, or more if you want, and you put the bead bag down, you can still chant by singing the Hare Krishna mantra, any bhajans that you like, or kirtans that you like. And if you keep doing that, then the whole time, the mantra will be ringing in the back of your mind. It goes on continuously. It's just that powerful. It can go on continuously. And the easier thing is to chant with a tune that you like a lot. Because you may be attracted to the tune, but then you're actually chanting to the melody, but you're actually chanting the holy name anyway. So your mind may be attracted to the tune, but the mantra is going to the soul. So you still benefit anyway. So chant and then render service to the Tulsi plant, watering her and offering prayers to her. Tulsi plant, Tulsi Maharani, she is very, very, very merciful. She is a pure devotee of Krishna. There's so many pastimes involving Tulsi Maharani. She herself and how she came to the material world and how she wanted Krishna as a husband, by the way. That was the whole reason. She went through a whole lila and wound up in the material world. The Tulsi plant is her mercy. She doesn't need us. She doesn't need our help to worship Krishna. She's already worshiping Krishna. In fact, she wants Krishna as a husband. You know she's thinking about Krishna all the time. So, to use the Tulsi leaf to offer to Krishna is a mercy that Tulsi has given us to allow us to use her in our devotion to Krishna. So while she's here, we should take advantage of that. And that's what Haridas Thakur is telling the prostitute, the reformed prostitute, because he was reformed, he changed her mind now. Render service to Tulsi plant, water her, and offer prayers to her. When there's Tulsi Puja, at some point, and towards the end of the puja itself, when we say Yani Kani Chapapani Brahmahati Kanicha, the circumambulate, which is worshiping Tulsi, and then we also would put little water on her soil, and then you can take a little bit of the soil and put it in the forehead and offer obeisance. Or if you have a Tulsi plant herself, and she's not easy to keep, but you can, take care of Tulsi. You can try to do that. It's a lot of mercy, is also a lot of excitement. Taking care of Tulsi. I know that because I do. For Gita Nagri, and I help one at the house also. She keeps you on the toes. So back to this. At least, I think one more. You have another one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at least 5,000 years ago, Lord Sri Krishna expressed his desire that everyone surrender to him. Savadharman Parityaja Mamikam Saranam Bhaja, which is about Gita chapter 18, text 66. That's the first two lines. The other lines are also there. Why is it that people cannot do this? Krishna assures us, Aham Tvam Sarvapapibhyo Mokshayishami Masuchaha. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions, do not fear. Just surrender to Krishna. He expressed his desire not because he needs us to surrender to him, but it's because our real happiness comes from surrendering to Him. So He actually was telling us what is good for us. Krishna is Atmaram. He doesn't need anybody. He can be happy enough himself. But when we surrender to Him, serving Him fully, then we are happier. Our real happiness comes from that. That's why He says, be happy. That's the same thing, surrender to me and the happiness comes. So everyone, back to this, everyone, sorry, okay. Everyone is suffering from the results of sinful activities. That's why we're in the material world. We're in the material world because of past karma or because initially we were envious of Krishna and we wound up here. But Krishna says if one surrenders unto Him, then He will protect from sinful reactions. If we surrender to Him, then He will protect from sinful reactions. There are several ways to protect us from sinful reactions, depending on how quickly we want to advance. Some may even pray to Krishna, protect me from my own mind, because it turns out, as the Avadut Brahman says in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, no, 7th canto, the Avanti Brahman is saying 7th canto, in the 11th canto, 7th chapter, I always get this mixed up, canto 11, chapter 7. The Avanti Brahman is saying that many things that we think cause us to not surrender to Krishna are all not true. It's actually the mind only. Only our mind keeps us from surrendering to Krishna. So the prayer to Krishna at this point is the same saying that Krishna help me be a better devotee. That's the same as saying, Krishna, protect this mind, protect me from this mind. Because the mind is not us. We are the soul. The mind is part of the subtle body. So we're carrying physical body and we're carrying subtle body also. And the mind is in the subtle body. Therefore, when the devotee is successful, in other words, he earns enough mercy to go back to the spiritual world, then, of course, the person, as we know, dies, which means the physical body stops working, the soul comes out of the body. The subtle body also comes out, but then Krishna kills the subtle body. We can't do that. It's not done. That's Krishna that takes care of the subtle body. And then one can go. So Krishna is the one that's in full control. So our prayer should be, please help me, because this mind, like my mind, troublesome the whole time. So I don't mind revealing one thing to you. Yesterday my rounds went a little late. It got done, but it went a little late. And I know this is a problem. So initially, if I get up in the morning and I don't start chanting right away, the Maya seizes the opportunity immediately. You got this to do, you got that to do, you got this to do, you got that to do. The morning goes by, the afternoon goes by, I still have in mind, you need to chant, you need intelligence to say you need to chant. I finish after 10 o'clock. And usually by 7, I'm done. I'm going to 10 p.m. But I was determined, I'm not going to bed till this is done. Right? But still, the mind can play with you like that. So we have to be, one of the best prayers, actually, to advance Krishna consciousness, is to ask Guru and Krishna to protect us from the bad things that are suggested through the mind. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj says, when you get up in the morning, beat the mind. You can imagine beating the mind. The morning, and beat the mind at night too. Sometimes when you go into night, that's when the lust and all of that comes in the mind. Same mind is telling us, trying to push us into lusty desires and so on at night. So, beat the mind with a broom, and beat the mind with a shoe. Like he was saying. The mind can be troublesome. So, modern civilization, however, is interested neither in Krishna nor in getting relief from sinful acts. Therefore, men are suffering. So what are people thinking? When we come up with this new gadget, another new gadget, that will always be, it will help us to live a better life, therefore we won't suffer. but definitely suffering still continues. We cannot get rid of suffering. It's not us. Suffering is part of things that happen in the material world. Only the spiritual world is free of suffering and free of anxiety. So once you're here, it attacks us one way or the other, depending on where it doesn't matter where we are. As long as we're in the material world, hellish planet, medium planet like where we are, or even the heavenly planet, still there's some sort of botheration. So men are suffering. Surrender is the ultimate instruction of Bhagavad Gita. But for one who cannot surrender unto the lotus feet of Krishna, it is better to chant the Hare Krishna mantra constantly under the instruction of Haridas Thakur. So although Krishna wants everyone to surrender to his lotus feet, because of the simple activities of people, they can't do this. Namam duskritino muda papadyante naradama. Bhagavad Gita 7:15. So, the rascals and fools, lowest of men, those who engage in simple activities, they can't surrender to the lotus feet of Krishna. They won't even forget about God. God is not there. God is dead. All kinds of things you say that God is not in control. That's how they think. So Krishna calls them fools and rascals. Unfortunate people, discretional, full of simple activities. So, all the same, nevertheless, if they begin chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and rendering service to Tulsi plant, they will soon be able to surrender. So Tulsi's mercy is immense. It's huge. We can increase our love for serving Krishna. She herself is a pure devotee, so she can appeal for help on our behalf to make us better devotees and go through purification. This is what Tulsi can do. In fact, it's said that if Tulsi is in the front door, or close to the front door, and the person leaves the body, the Yamadutas cannot get in. They cannot get in the house. Today is talking about it. This is how effective Tulsi is. So worshipping Tulsi is very important. So, one's real duty is to surrender to the lotus feet of Krishna. But before I go on, the important thing here, it says, in fact, some of us that even call ourselves devotees, we don't know how to surrender to Krishna. But the process has been made very simple. You don't know, it doesn't matter. Just chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This is the point that's being made. So back to the handout. One's real duty is to surrender to the lotus feet of Krishna. But if one is unable to do so, then he should adopt this process, introduced by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his most confidential servant, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur. This is the way to achieve success in Krishna consciousness. So in one sense, we're being told, don't worry about how to surrender, just keep chanting. And when you do that, Krishna himself will guide you, guru to guru, in the process of
Can you explain a little bit more about how to surrender? Like, what's the definition? Like, even if somebody is chanting, I want to know, like, what is their more...
A person who is surrendered, that is a person who has achieved surrendering, is the kind of person who does not think any day about how to go on with life. A surrendered person has in the mind that I want Guru and Krishna to run my life for me. So a surrendered person is a person who is mentally gotten out of the way and prayed that Krishna, Guru, you run my life. That's a surrendered person. How to get there? Chant the holy name. That's what they told you about. You chant the holy name. Because when we chant the holy name in our lives, a lot will be revealed to us to make us realize actually Krishna is in control and Krishna is in fact seeking my welfare. And then you also realize that there are some things you plan and doesn't work so well. But then if you pray about it, it works much better than you could have thought to do. Then you realize Krishna actually is not only is he in control, he can do things a lot better than me. So if I leave it to him, I'll be fine. I'm struggling too much mentally to try to do things. It doesn't mean we don't plan though. It doesn't mean we don't plan. We do plan, because after all, Krishna gave us intelligence. But the prayer that should go with our planning is, all right, we're thinking of doing such and such and such and such. But, dear Shri Prabhupada, dear Krishna, if it's your will, then let it happen according to this. And if it's not, then you change it. My spiritual master used to say, if it's not what you want, he used even a stronger word, he said, you sabotage it. Literally. Just break it, don't let it work. And so with that, every time we do anything, we're saying it's in the Lord's hands. So a surrendered person is always looking at life that way. Any other questions?
Yeah, Prabhu.
Yes.
You just mentioned like as soon as you wake up, like chant the holy name, like start chanting.
Yeah.
And otherwise Maya will take over, and then your chanting will not be effective, or maybe chanting will go until night or something.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot just start chanting. First you have to do your morning things, and so even if somebody doesn't do the chanting, let's say by 7 or 8 or 9,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't finish by that time.
Yeah.
So all the chanting done by like in the afternoon or evening, they're not that effective, because you are interacting like rest of the world, and maybe those, how are those rounds are counted?
I understand the question. What you're saying is chanting in terms of taking your japa beats and chanting, getting the 16 rounds done is what you're saying. Okay. You always think about Krishna. Haridas Thakur told the reformed prostitute to chant all the time. So when you wake up and you don't take your beat back, you even go to the bathroom, you can still have the mantra ringing in your mind though. Right in the morning, you start. Chanting doesn't mean you always have to have the japa beats before you start chanting. Well, if that's the case, then we would chant for 1.5, 2 hours, and that's it. Then we won't think about Krishna at all. So this is going on all the time. Whether you have the beat back with you or whether you don't have the beat back with you. Sometimes the way things are for some people, especially Grihasthas, and most of us, not all of us, are Grihasthas, what we have to do in the morning and when we get up to try to get it done doesn't make it possible for us to grab our bead bags and do it. Chant. But actually, that's where we are now. If we keep chanting and chanting and chanting, at some point, we will actually want to get up earlier and do that. I know 3 buddies who are in IOE too, they get up 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning. Some of them, I won't mention names, you know them very well, but I mention them, you would know immediately. And between 3 and 4 o'clock, they're reading. Of course, that all has to do with when you go to bed, though. When you go to bed. The difficulty in getting up early is because we go to bed too late. But the time that's between the time we go to bed and the time we want to get up, okay, we need to have adequate sleep, which the Bhagavad says 6 hours. Yeah, you just put it out there, 6 hours. But whatever time that we sleep, one of his disciples, who's also a guru, his name is His Holiness Hirananda Maharaj. He's sannyasi now. And he said, the issue with people, he was talking about devotees getting up and going to Mangalarti, which starts around 4:30 in many places. You said you struggle to get up because you go to bed at 12 midnight. And then you get up around 3:30, 4, or at least you live in an ashram and devotees already started making noise around 3 o'clock. So then if you want to get up, just work back 6 hours. When should I go to bed? If it takes you a half hour before you actually sleep, then when should you hit the bed? So the half hour you start sleeping to get the 6 hours and then be able to get up. And this is true. When you go to bed earlier, then we can get up at the time and the time that's early and still feel rested. That's the important. If you don't feel rested, then your day is crappy. So it all also has to do with that. But for now, because there are no hard and fast rules for chanting, chant when you can, as far as the time. But most of the time, if not all the time, have the mantra ringing in your mind. And then, of course, take the bead back right now, the way you set it up, and chant. And as you go on, gradually you improve, gradually you realize that everything you do materially is necessary, but not important. We have a physical body, therefore if we don't do those things, the physical body will give us trouble. Ours, our spouses, and our children's physical body are all ones that have needs. So then we do those things as a necessity. But in fact, the most important thing, all the category of service, bhakti yoga, chanting, reading, hearing, all of that, that's more important. That's the important thing. Physical body is necessary to help to do things for it. But and it's not too hard to prove that. What happens when you put all your effort into a physical body, maintain the physical body? What's the physical body do for you? Yes, it's old, it dwindles, and at some point it ceases to work. We call it death. That's all you get from the physical body. But then if you do what's important, food for the soul, then the soul moves on to a better situation, or moves out of the material world altogether. And so it's more important to take care of what's necessary for the soul. So personally, I don't put anything for the body as important. It's necessary. Sometimes it's very necessary, but it's still necessary because it ends with death. But then the soul goes on. And so what's important for the soul? And of course, in Kali Yuga, it's very simplified here. Chant the holy name Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Let me mention one more thing about Tulsi. Probably not everyone has Tulsi in their house. And not everyone will be able to go to the temple or in a place where they can offer puja to Tulsi. Just like Srila Prabhupada is not actually physically here, but the Murti is here, or the picture is here, you can also use the picture of Tulsi. Don't think you can't. Just the picture of Tulsi and offer puja to the picture. You can do that. In fact, some temples, sometimes if they lose the Tulsi plant, they don't have any, the temples, they actually take a picture of Tulsi. You go on the altar, sometimes Tulsi is there, if it's not there, the picture of Tulsi is there. The picture has the same potency. So you definitely can get a picture of Tulsi and use it. I'm glad my guru reminded me about that because I didn't think about it first. Yeah, use the Tulsi picture. So that can be done. Alright, so spiritual edification. Bhagavad Gita as it is, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, text 7 of chapter 7. Very popular one. I know my spiritual master, Bhakti Maharaj, used to quote this practically every lecture, this one. So can we say it together, the Sanskrit? Okay. Alright, let's start. Mata parataram danya kinchid asti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam utam sute mani gunana. So, translation, O conqueror of wealth. This is Krishna telling Arjuna, Dhananjaya. Conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Everything rests on me, just like pearls are strung on a thread. There is no truth superior to me. Krishna is the beginning and the end. Purport, there is a common controversy over whether the Supreme Absolute Truth is personal or impersonal. As far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, the Absolute Truth is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and this is confirmed in every step. In this verse in particular, it's stressed that the Absolute Truth is a person. I'd like to forewarn you that we will get to questions, as we always do in this, and this particular text, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 7, is an answer to one of the questions, so make a note of that. Usually, when we get there, this particular sutta is one of them that answers the questions. And a good bit of what we're going to talk about are all questions, answers to questions, practically, the purport also. So there's common controversy over whether the Supreme Absolute Truth is personal or impersonal. As far as the Bhagavad Gita is concerned, the Absolute Truth is a personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and this is confirmed in every step. In this verse, in particular, it is stressed that the Absolute Truth is a person. So there will be a question about whether Krishna is a person or not. So that's why I'm just kind of hinting ahead of time, rather than even go to the questions now, I'm just letting you know. That the personality of Godhead is the supreme absolute truth, is also the affirmation of Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha. Now, that's the first two lines. The other two lines are Anadi Adi Govinda, Sarva Karana Karanam. That's the full sloka. The supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead, is Lord Krishna, who is the primeval Lord and the reservoir of all pleasure. Govinda, the eternal form of complete bliss and knowledge. Anadi Adi Govinda Sarva Karana Karana. So Ishvara Parama Krishna, Supreme Controller, is Krishna, Supreme Absolute Truth. Satchidananda Vigraha, his form, okay, his form is full of knowledge, eternity, and bliss. So Vigraha is form. So that already defeats because the people having the he's impersonal. Well, personal, if he's impersonal, he can't have form there. But his form is even described here. So obviously the Krishna is person is a person. Anadi Adi Govinda. Anadi Adi Govinda means he has no beginning. Adi is beginning. He, Govinda, the Lord who gives pleasure to the cows and the senses, that's what Govinda means. He has no beginning, but he's connected with the beginning of everything. He started everything. So Anadi, that's for him. But then Adi means he is actually the beginning. And then Sarva Karana Karanam. For all, he's the cause of all causes. Everything that happens through him. So even what the demons do, they cannot do without the power of Krishna. Everything is under Krishna. I remember one time telling a Christian, they talk about devil, they tend to separate God from the devil. But then I said, God created the devil. And he couldn't take it. And I said, but then, is there anything that God didn't create? He said, he created everything. Is there the devil? He said, yes, but then God created the devil. Your problem is, why did he create the devil? Because the devil does bad things. Well, why is there a liquor store? Do you have to drink? But a liquor store is there. So if you get tempted by it, then you drink. You get tempted by the devil, then you do what the devil does. But it's only in the material world that the only place that's safe that the devil doesn't bother you is back in the spiritual world. That's why Sri Prabhupada wants us to go back. So here you're given both. It's called duality. The good and the bad. Then you decide what to do. So the devil is full-time working on bad things. If you just play into that, then it happens. But that's also God's creation. Because she didn't understand that in the material world, this is all important. If you do the tests to get back, if you really want to go back. Anyway, so I did a little preaching. It was nice.
So could you explain why the devil, I mean, there's so much things happening which are bad in the world. I mean, France, there are so many people killed.
Yeah.
Pakistan, school children are killed. I mean, that's quite a lot of devilish act, right?
Mm.
So, I mean, even if God created, I mean, did they tell, I mean, prescribed duty that your prescribed duty is to just
I
it's
understand.
kind of difficult to understand that God would have created such devilish people and given them an instruction that okay, this is your prescribed duty.
God does not tell the devil what to do, any more than God tells us what to do. We also have free will. Nobody asked you to come here this morning. You decided to come. Some people came, some people didn't come. So, the devil also has free will. And we also have free will. So free will has been given to everyone. Now, when we choose the bad things, then we're playing into what the devil does. Now, a couple of things that you said, why has the Lord done all of these? Well, this is, we have to remember, this means the material world is a prison house. And the prison house is where criminals are. And criminals don't usually do good things, right? So if you don't want the situation, then you get out. We have been envious of Christians. And sometimes we don't remember that we are in a situation here to learn, and the situation, some of which is bad, as you're describing now, it feels like most of it is bad. Because if you think it's bad, we haven't seen anything yet. When Kali Yuga progresses 400,000 years from now, you wouldn't even want to. It will be a lot worse. So, but the point though is that we are going through suffering because we have chosen to do things in the spiritual world that was negative, primarily enviousness, okay, envy. And so we've been put in the material world. The problems that we go through here is punishment. That's all that goes on here in the material world. We're going to be suffering. The body itself is a bad bargain. So if you say you're peaceful, you're not in a place where there are wars and so on, but look what the body does. The body controls us practically. Anytime you're doing anything and you need to go to the bathroom, whether you like it or not, you have to stop and go. The body controls you. And that's even the ones that we can tolerate. Of course, I understand that, wars, and it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. But it's honest, about them. It's getting worse. It's going to continue to get worse. So our situation is, we have done things that wasn't very smart when we were in the spiritual world. We've been put here, and then what Krishna has done is, by his mercy, he's also brought pure devotees into this material world, and they are working overtime to tell us, get back. You're trying to live here. You're trying to manage here. And you think it's okay to manage, but you can't. You can't. Everybody in the spiritual world lives forever. Here, people die. That alone should tell you something. It's not nice here. You can try to make situations a little bit comfortable, but that's all you can do. It's almost like this story, if you don't mind my saying it. Story of a man who was walking in a very, very mountainous area, but he was on top. He wasn't climbing, he was on top. And so he was walking and not paying attention, so he got to the edge of a hilly area, so it was a big drop. But he didn't notice it, so when he took a step, he tripped and he started falling. Now, it was a very, 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 very long fall, steep. So as he was going down fast, but because it was so long, he had enough time to think. In fact, when you get ready to die, that thought comes in a fraction of a second. I'm going to die. And so, and the first thing is how to save myself if I can. So fortunately, on the edge of this hill, there was a tree. And he was headed down, but he was headed in the direction of a tree. And so when he hit the tree, he still managed to grab a branch. And then he hung on to the branch. So temporarily, he had stopped the process of potential death. He was hurt, but hurt when you bang the tree, but at least he still was alive. So he's hanging on to a branch, and he looks down. It's very steep. So what to do? I can't hold this branch forever. You have to do something. You can't go back up. Okay? So the difference between those who are wealthy, who think that life is okay, which means a little better, and those who are not, it just depends on how strongly we're hanging onto the branch. A rich person is grabbing the branch a little stronger, but they're still hanging. In the material world, you are hanging. Poor people have only one finger hanging onto the branch, right? So they see the suffering more. So rich people is like you've been given a little more strength to hang on, but you're still hanging on. And the time will come where you'll be feeble. The time will come, death will just take you off the branch. There's nothing you can do about it. Nobody stops death. So that's the situation we're in. Everybody's in that situation. And those who are a little better off are hanging on to the branch a little more strongly than those who aren't. That's all. That's all you have. So anyway, the story continues, but that's the point that I wanted to make about that particular analogy. Any other questions? Okay. So let's go on. Okay. Anadi had to go over this. So eternal form of complete bliss and knowledge. So these authorities leave no doubt that the absolute truth is the Supreme Person, the cause of all causes, Sarva Karana Karanam. The impersonalist, however, argues on the strength of the Vedic version given in the Swatar Upanishad 3.10. Tato yad utratram tad arupam anamayam yad etat vidur amitas te bhavanti ate tare dukam eva kliyanti. In the material world, Brahma, this is how they think now, in person. Brahma, the primeval living entity within the universe, is understood to be the supreme among the demigods, human beings, and lower animals. And then they think, but beyond Brahma there is transcendence. And the transcendence has no material form and is free from material contamination. So this is what they think. Brahma is top, and then beyond Brahma, Brahma is he has form. Right? But beyond Brahma, according to what they think, there is the transcendental, but the transcendental they look at it as a concept, therefore there is no form. That's what they say. So anyone who can know him also becomes transcendental. But those who do not know him suffer the miseries of the material world. So, the impersonalist puts more stress on the word arupam. But this arupam is not impersonal. That is the mistake they make. See, it indicates the transcendental form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, as described in Brahma Samhita. Now, somehow we can see that what's form? Well, form is form, we say Satchidananda. Satchidananda. Eternal, then knowledgeable, then blissful. Eternal, knowledgeable, and blissful. So they go, well, eternity, that's a concept. Knowledge, that's a concept. Being happy is a concept. Therefore, there is no form. See, that's how they think. But they don't realize that it takes a person to live eternally. Formlessness does not live eternally. Person can live eternally. Person can have knowledge. They just think the knowledge is there. But the Buddhists say Krishna has all knowledge. And then, of course, bliss. So how can bliss not be exhibited by a personality? Happiness cannot be exhibited by itself. It takes a person to do things that make them happy. So happiness is definitely connected with a form. So that's why the formlessness is not right. Other verses in this is hard to read because this is all about the Mayavadis, how they use these. So the Swatar Upanishad 3:8-9 substantiate this as follows: Vedaham etam purusham mahantam aditya varnam tamasa parastat tam eva vidivati mityum iti nanya paya panta videte yanaha yanaya yasmat param na param asikinchit yasmam na niyo no jayo sti kinchit vriksha iva stafto divi tistatekas tenedam purnam purushena sarvam. I know the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all material conceptions of darkness. Only he who knows him can transcend the bonds of birth and death. There is no way for liberation other than this knowledge of that Supreme Person. There is no truth superior to that Supreme Person because he is the supermost. He is smaller than the smallest. He is greater than the greatest. He is situated as a silent tree. This is the Paramatma in that case, the Super Soul. And he illumines the transcendental sky, and as a tree spreads its roots, he spreads his extensive energies. From these verses, one concludes the Supreme Absolute Truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is all-pervading by his multi-energies, both material and spiritual. So, the impersonalists say Lord Brahma is Bhagavan, and above Bhagavan is no personality, because transcendence, when transcendence doesn't have form. So this is the mistake. First of all, Lord Brahma is Guna Avatar. The three gunas, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and the Lord Vishnu. So the Guna Avatars, Lord Brahma is one for the mode of passion, Lord Vishnu the mode of goodness, and Lord Shiva the mode of ignorance. But Supreme Personality of God, as we know, Lord Brahma came from Gavadaksaya Vishnu anyway, so he's not the God. And Gavadaksaya Vishnu has form. That's the Lord himself. So, I'd already given a clue as to the answer for the first one. Hopefully you still remember. So first question, what are the pearls compared to, and what is the thread compared to? So where, I'll put it this way, where in this handout do we get anything saying pearls at all? Where's pearls mentioned? Anyone? You have to go almost towards the beginning.
It's in translation. A conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls I have strung on a thread.
That is where the pearls are mentioned. Okay, so the question relates to pearls, and the question is, pearls compared to, what are the pearls compared to, what is a thread compared to? So the pearls, as the translation says, everything rests upon me. Everything rests upon me. What do pearls do in a thread? They rest on the neck of a person who's wearing it. So Krishna has everything under control with him. Okay, so it answers both questions. What the pearls are compared to, what's the thread compared to. So that's discovery question number one.
So
Yeah.
it seems because of so many things that are happening in the world, it seems like God is not in control. I mean, He's just creating things and let things to happen randomly, but nothing really is in His control. It just seems to me like that. I mean, there are devil things, there are good things, people are trying individually to do good things.
Yeah, some of you are kind of smiling when you're saying that, but a lot of people do in fact think that way.
God is good.
That's why they don't think that if there's a God, why are things happening that way?
But the people who are killing, they are thinking they are doing it in the name of the God. They have a different version of God, but
yes.
So
In the Quran, they're saying this from the Quran that God said they should kill the infidels.
yes,
So they are doing God's work, and if in killing the infidels try to fight back and they kill them, then they will be elevated. They will be a matter. When they go back, to use matter God. Yeah. And Krishna.
I'm not denying the existence of God.
Yeah.
It just
But why is
seems
this all
like-
being allowed
it
to
just
happen?
seems that things are kind of uncontrolled right now. I mean, maybe so.
That's a very important question. It's a very
It seems
important
that.
question. It seems like that.
Right.
Yeah. So people are suffering. It's a jail. And when you're in jail, some criminals will give you trouble. Even ghosts give people trouble. Never mind just humans only. So it's bad. This is very good sentiment from you, the question you're asking. Why is this happening? Because if God is good, then everything about Him that is created should also be good. That's the point you're making. But why is it bad like that? Well, as Srila Prabhupada puts it, when a country is put together, for lack of a better word, there are many, many things that are put together by the government and even businesses in order for the country to to go on, to function, people to function. But the government also makes a deal. They also construct a deal. Why? Because the government already knows, this is Papa knows, he already knows some people are going to be bad. That is likely to happen. Therefore, they've created a space where those people will be taken out of society and put there. What is difficult for us to understand is we are in jail. Don't expect a party in jail. No. Just because you are a good criminal trying to reform yourself and somebody else is not, and taking the Quran out of context and using it to kill people, the Papa says, that's why I'm saying it out. It's a deal. It's very, very, very difficult for sometimes people to understand that when you hang on to the branch a little more strongly. That's why we gave that particular analogy. You hang on to the branch, but you're not in a safe situation at all. You have a nice house. One day the tornado may come through. Where's the house now? Can you control the tornado? No. Can you control earthquake? No. In other words, the material world is created to give us trouble so we can get out. See, we wanted to be controllers. So we got put here. And this is what Siddha Papa stresses. So here everybody is trying to be the best. We might not even think that way. We say, oh, we're just trying to make life a little better for us. Well, better for us compared to who? Somebody that's not a little better. So then you're trying to be better than someone else. You might not even think that way, but you're trying to be better than someone else. And Krishna says you're never going to be happier here. And so he allows the demigods to put all these trouble in the way. So that we would be tired enough to want to leave. Because the tendency is, as many people, we want to get a better job, want to get a better situation, so we can stay here and be happy here. But there's no happiness here. And this is what Siddha Papa was pointing out. Don't expect happiness. There's always some trouble. There's always some trouble. Since Christmas, 24th, and now 2 days ago, 2 friends of mine have died. Same cause, blood clot. That got into the lung area and asphyxiated them, they couldn't breathe. In just a matter of minutes, they died. So now I'm leaving here, going to Washington, D.C., one that we just heard 2 days ago, to deal with this particular person. And this person that left the body, we know him, know the children, know the wife. I knew the wife first before she married him and so on. Very much health-related guy. He sells herbs, and he's in great shape. Was, right? Because now he's left the body. We don't know what will happen at any time. So, Radha Maharaj explains that Krishna has deliberately put things here to want to make us get out. So the point you made, even though other people were smiling, is it's uncomfortable here, but it's been deliberately put that way so that you hear more what the founder child is saying. Get out, get out, get out. It's really a prison. It's really a prison. It's all wonderful in the spiritual world. There is no fighting, there is no war. That's why when sometimes Krishna just wants to fight, he has to come to the material world to fight the demons. Sometimes even their own pure devotees take bodies of demons just so to allow Krishna to sport. But it's here that the trouble is. That's what we need to understand. So we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So your question, you've asked it 2 different ways, same way, same question, is Krishna wants us to go. Get out of here. We have done the wrong thing in the spiritual world, we've been put here, and now, here, there's trouble. You want to make it comfortable, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But depending on people's karma, some people will suffer more than others. There are no accidents. But in general, everybody is suffering to some degree. Some heavier than others. But the important thing is, get out, and in this Kali Yuga, the process is made so simple. So Haridas Thakur was saying, you chant the holy name of the Lord, you worship Tulsi. Now we know if you don't have Tulsi, you can have a Tulsi picture. So now everybody can worship Tulsi. Go to the internet, Google Tulsi, picture comes, print it, put it in a frame. Here you go. Now you can start worshiping. So it's not difficult at all. And I can understand your concern. Why is all of this happening? It's jail. People have free will and they do whatever they want. You don't like it, you get out of jail. That's the process to get out of jail that we're listening to. Now, that's what we're in. Okay, so, question number, which one?
Understanding.
Understanding. Okay. Mention all the scriptural evidences given here to prove that God is a person and that He is supreme controller of both the material and spiritual worlds. God is a person and is the supreme controller of spiritual worlds.
Shvetastara Upanishad? No.
Okay, they all say the same thing. They all say the same thing in answer to this question. In answer to this question. That in the Brahma Samhita, the Supreme Controller is Parama Krishna. And then, in the first one that we've used earlier, the same one that answered the first question, that everything is under my control. Like pearls on a string, it hangs with me. So number 2, what are the benefits of knowing these facts about the Supreme Lord? That's just a question from your own realization. What are the benefits of knowing these facts about the Supreme Lord? How does it benefit us when we know this? That Krishna is the Supreme Lord. What's the smartest thing to do? Now that we know Krishna, we know the same thing. Chant. Okay. Why do we chant? Because we don't know how to surrender exactly. So we have to surrender to Him. That is the whole point. The benefit of knowing that He is the Supreme Lord is rely on Him. Rely on Him and surrender to Him. What are the disadvantages of not knowing or understanding these facts about the Supreme Lord?
We don't know whom to surrender to.
Yep, we're lost just like the Mayavadis. That's exactly what happens. If we don't know, then it's like, so I like the questions that you're asking. This is, why is it like this? Why is it like this here? Why is it like this in the material world? I was also very confused until I came into this particular path. Then the answers started coming. Because when I was in graduate school, it's mentioned, when I was in graduate school, okay, the book is still there. So, there's this woman that I met. She was also a graduate student. I was in Boston at the time. And called myself, somebody that's trying to be Christian. I was Catholic, raised Catholic, born Catholic. Brandeis, that was a Jewish school, but it didn't matter. It's all, about God anyway. And this woman seemed quite disturbed. But initially she wasn't telling me why. And later on is when it came out. She said, I have cancer. And I don't know why I have cancer at such a young age. I'm dying. Why has God done this to me? This is the same thing. Something similar. Why has God done this to me? And I had no idea about karma. And even if I did, she'd be offended if I told her it's your bad karma, right? So obviously you have to be tactful in how you say these things. But I was completely lost. I couldn't come up with an answer. Why God has given her cancer? Because He's saying God gave her cancer. This is how she's thinking. I pray to God and I still have come down with cancer. And at a young age, I'm not even finished school and I'm dying. And I was just quiet. I was just looking at her as I wish I could help her with it. All I can tell her is to pray. But she's saying the one we prayed to gave me the cancer. See, so there is disease in the material world. It's not pleasant here. Everybody gets sick. That's why the doctors have worked overtime like that. Everybody gets sick. There is no sickness. The soul doesn't get sick. So see, when you understand this and you say, all right, this is an unpleasant place, the material world. It's not going to get better. It's for people who are going through the results of their wrongdoing. That's what happens. A person gets caught by the police because he's a criminal and they put him in jail. So if you're in jail, you've done something wrong. Whether you remember it or not, you've done something wrong. And so it's a question of getting up. If I knew it then, I'd explain. I explained that it's not just you being sick. Other people have diseases worse than you. Other people have lost their homes from earthquakes and so on and so on and so on. God has created this place because some people offend the Lord. And when they offend Him, they get put here. So you may not remember what you did. Well, why? I don't remember what I did. Why am I here? I'll ask you. Do you remember what you did when you were a baby? That's just this lifetime. You don't even remember that. How would you remember the lifetimes before? So no mistakes are made. So we don't have a case, but we are fortunate because now we know how to get out. It's just a question of applying it. How can we explain number 5? No, wait a minute. 4. How do the impersonalists interpret the scriptures to prove that God is impersonal? Remember we talked about Lord Brahma and beyond them. Okay. And this is true. So how do the impersonalists interpret the scriptures to prove that God is impersonal?
And they think like it is arupam, like God is like a transcendental.
No form.
Yeah, no form.
It's just called transcendence. They admit the Lord Brahma is top, and then beyond Lord Brahma, top in terms of one that has form, but beyond that, transcendence, transcendence has no form. And so they say this impersonal situation is there. How can we explain to them their mistaken identity, their mistaken understanding? How can we explain to them? So, will the preacher raise a hand and tell them? You know, you've heard this, so anybody can explain it in their own words. If somebody told you that, and they're really convinced, they're really convinced, you're going to live life based on that. And you know how people can get convinced? Some of the Muslims are convinced now, look what they're doing, killing people. So how can we explain to them, this is actually quite serious. If somebody sees you, what would you do? What would you say? What would you say? You know? They're saying Lord is impersonal. Okay. Mistaken understanding, the Lord is impersonal. So if there is Satchidananda, but the Lord is Satchidananda Vigraha, then the Lord has form. And it also described what the form is full of: knowledge, eternity, and bliss. That's in a form. So the Lord does have form. You see, and if we have these, we can even show that by the Lord's mercy, He comes like that. Now, as to whether they'll believe that He is the Lord Himself, that's another story, but at least that's sometimes physical proof to reasonably believe. All right, so application. The absolute truth is ultimately impersonal. Refute this statement with scriptural evidences, logic, and realization of great devotees. Refute this statement. It's ultimately impersonal. I think I know why you're stuck, because it's the same answer that we've been talking about. The same thing, the answer is the same way. The Lord does have form. The scripture evidence says Satchidananda Ishvara Parama Krishna is the controller, and then He has form, Satchidananda Vigraha. So it is actually the same answer. Preaching is the essence. His Divine Grace, Ace Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, page 47. The preacher is very dear to the Lord. So as it says here, therefore, my dear young friends, am I reading it correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Therefore, my dear young friends, this is, I'm sure Prahlad Maharaj, yeah, he was preaching when he was 5 years old, preaching to his classmates. My dear young friends, show mercy to all living entities by enlightening them in devotional service, thus becoming their well-wishers. So if you tell somebody about devotional service, especially for today and how Krishna has planned this whole day, the way it's panned out, the questions that Prabhu is asking, the person that preaches devotional service to someone is in fact the well-wisher from that person, because performing devotional service makes it possible for us to get away from the conception of material life being the all in all, and then we begin to involve ourselves in bhakti, and bhakti develops love for God, and then develop love for God means you're going to go back, get out of the material prison and go back to Godhead. Therefore, if you're telling anybody or showing anyone, then you are in fact a well-wisher. So, the Lord said, Bhagavad Gita 1855, Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tat vataha. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. Prahlad Maharaj ultimately instructs his class friends, the sons of the demons, to accept the process of devotional service by preaching the science of Krishna consciousness to everyone. Preaching is the best service to the Lord. The Lord will immediately be extremely satisfied with one who engages in this service of preaching Krishna consciousness. This is confirmed by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 1869. Nacha tasman manusheshu kaschin priya pritamaha. There is no servant in the world more dear to me than he, the one who preaches, nor will there ever be one more dear. Okay, so by how we act, we can also preach. By how we act. So it's not just being behind the microphone only. Okay. So what do we do as grihastas? Preach to the children. You can preach to the children. We can buy paraphernalia for them that remind them about Krishna. We can get them toys and games that remind them about Krishna consciousness. All of these are available. And let them take part in Krishna conscious activities. And as far as that's concerned, we have to just give kudos to everybody, because practically everybody here is doing that for their child. They're somehow involved in Krishna consciousness. This is how Srila Prabhupada himself started. He wanted a few material things like a toy gun and so on when he was little, but then he also asked for Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. And when he got little ones made for him, he started a whole Rath Yatra with the kids. You never know what the young boy can do. So definitely preach to them. Children, do they like philosophy? They would be here if they did. So you tell them Krishna stories. Krishna stories. That they like to hear. Yeah. And then within the Krishna stories are things you do and you don't. Do's and don'ts are right in Krishna stories. So that, getting paraphernalia to remind them about Krishna, getting toys and games. They have electronic things now. They like electronic things a lot. There are electronic things, games about Krishna. And these are sold. You can definitely get them. And let them take part in Krishna consciousness activity. So if one sincerely tries his best to spread Krishna consciousness by preaching Krishna consciousness, by preaching the glories of the Lord and His supremacy, then even if he is imperfectly educated, he becomes the dearmost servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is bhakti. As one performs this service for humanity, without discrimination between friends and enemies, the Lord becomes satisfied. Without discrimination between friends and enemies. In fact, the devotee should not have friends or enemies, especially enemies. Friends should be friendly to everybody. Okay. So then, if you're friendly to anybody, then you don't have enemies. So then you don't have friends and enemies. You don't categorize like that. You should feel sorry for those who offend you, because they are being aparadis, and then they'll suffer this material world. They won't get to leave. They're trying to get out, but they don't. Okay. So in many, many, many instances, the spiritual masters, when they preach, they tell us, somebody offends, don't offend back. But your sentiment should not be anger. Your sentiment, you should feel sorry for them, because they're asking for trouble. This place is troublesome already, and you're going to have more trouble. So, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore advised everyone to become a Guru devotee and preach Krishna consciousness. Yaredeka Tarekaha Krishna Upadesh. This is the easiest way to realize Supreme Personality of Godhead. So no, we may not be preachers in terms of like what I'm doing now behind the microphone. There are few devotees do that, but you definitely can preach to your children. And tell them stories about it. Hare Krishna. So are there any other questions or comments before we actually close out?
Prabhuji, Haridas Thakur ji, like, I mean, can you provide some introduction, like, are they the one, like, who served Banke Bihari ji temple?
Did they again?
Okay, Haridas
Haridas
Thakur ji,
Thakur,
are they
yeah.
the one, like, who served at Banke Bihari temple?
I don't know.
Okay.
Does anybody know? He
Yeah.
was? Yes, yes. Okay,
Yeah.
then yes, sir.
So there were two sampradayas that came out of that. One was the
Yeah, Nimbar
Nimbar
Kachara,
Kachara.
Simbadan.
So they were the kind of sannyasis.
Yeah.
So if you go to, there is a place, Tatiya Sthan in Vrindavan.
Mm.
They live there and they do
Mhm.
the devotional service. And the other sampradaya that came was Goswamis.
Mm.
So Madhur Shastri ji and they came out of that sampradaya and they serve in Banke Bihari.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
So you ask me what I would know. Okay, Mati.
Yeah, I just have a question.
Yeah.
What are the steps to the aarti, like the proper aarti we do?
What is the steps?
Steps, yeah.
Okay.
What is the meaning also for each,
All right.
steps like?
All right, let's start with the meaning. So the paraphernalia that we offer to Krishna, we actually don't own anything. Everything belongs to Krishna. Just like if you're in the Ganga river and you take the water and you offer back, that's all you can do is just offer back, but the water belongs to Mother Ganga anyway. So these that we use in the Arctic trade actually signify our love, or practice of our love, okay, in general, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The items there talk about the different things that are made, the 5 elements. The earth, the water, the fire, right? Like that. Because those all represented in there. Now, the sequence which we do things. We are conditioned souls, except there are pure devotees hiding among us. I don't know, I'm not a pure devotee. But we are conditioned souls. So we can't offer directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead receives bhakti from pure devotees. But he's also arranged for a medium between him and the devotee that's a conditioned soul, and that is Guru. And so when we start in any arti with your offering, you have to offer the Guru first. You don't have a Guru that's initiated you, you definitely offer the Srila Prabhupada. Now after Srila Prabhupada, the whole point is Srila Prabhupada, when you offer, and then it goes out to Prabhupada, he offers to his Guru and so on, it goes up. But from Srila Prabhupada, if you don't have initiated Guru, whatever you're offering is already purified. We may not have the potency to purify it, but it's already purified. So you always start with this. And then the foremost devotee, which is the Lord himself, Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. So that order is always the Guru, then Gauranitai. Now after that, the order doesn't matter. You may have Ladhu Gopal, somebody may have Jagannath Bhadi Subhadra, and so on. But you go from Guru or Srila Prabhupada. If you have a Guru, your Guru, then Srila Prabhupada. In that order. Okay? So your Guru, and then Srila Prabhupada, or Srila Prabhupada directly, and then Gauranitai. Then after that, then you go on in whatever order, Radha Krishna, Jagannath. In the temples, they will do Guru, Gauranitai, and then they will do Radha Krishna, and then Jagannath Bhadi Subhadra, like that. Yeah. So it's always, the important thing is Guru, then Gauranitai, and then on. Yeah. All right, any other comments, questions? Yeah.
Can happiness be pursued?
Yes. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That's where the happiness comes from. It may not be immediate, but it definitely comes. It's internal happiness. Very important question. Internal happiness. Not external. External is just sense gratification. Internal happiness, the active pursuit, that's your happiness. Yeah.
The question, when we chant Hare Krishna, should we always concentrate on Krishna? It's hard to concentrate sometimes.
Mm.
How our mind wanders.
Yeah.
So should we try to picture Krishna all the time? Like how?
All right.
should we-
Srila Prabhupada said that the highest place to put the mind in when you're chanting is Radha Krishna. But remember, there are no hard and fast rules. You can chant, you can think about Krishna, but you can think about Guru, you can think about Srila Prabhupada, you can put deities in front of you, chant where the deities are, so your mind and your eyes can also be involved. The more your senses are connected with Krishna, the less of a chance that your mind will roam, because the mind is actually connected to the senses. You're imagining things involving the senses anyway. Okay, so that you can do. You can write the mantra on a piece of paper and look at that. Actually, the Prabhupada says, even when you're on the beach, you can go in the sand and as best as you can do art, make a drawing of Krishna with the flute and Radha and look at that and chant. There are no rules. There are no rules at all. But yeah, he said, and I read this, he said that to think about Radha Krishna is the highest. When I chant, I'm thinking about my Guru. Because he's the one that takes me to Krishna. I have no, that's my training. With him, if I go through, I told him when he was alive, he's left his body, we told him everything. Some people were, a little bit embarrassed to go there. I told him everything. Everything. Last year, I poured it all on him because, see, I knew him. I knew that he had heard it all. I wasn't going to do anything that he hasn't heard before. So even if he gets upset, let's say we'll give you instruction on what to do. And he did. Getting my kids, he did. And it helped me tremendously. So that's why I'm more connected to this. Half the time when I'm talking to my Guru, I said, but what he says is consistent with Srila Prabhupada says. So if I mention him, like Swami, I still mean he learned from Srila Prabhupada. But this is, disciple of it. But yeah, it's a great process. You get happy, but Krishna tests you, Maya tests you, so it's not immediate happiness, but the happiness does come. Then you get disconnected from so many material things. Then you realize sense gratification is just that, sense gratification. But it's not real happiness. Internal happiness is very different from sense gratification. Big difference. You get a taste of it. Krishna will give you a taste of it. Pure devotees are immersed in it all the time. But someone that takes it seriously, you will get a taste of it. Yeah. I've had people tell me they're chanting and they start crying, they don't even know why they're crying, and their heart gets all, I don't know, it's, they describe those kind of things. But yeah, then you begin to get help from Krishna also. Many things that you you thought were important become less important as time goes on. Material things, that is. Material things, material enjoyment. Krishna removes the desires from those. And then, you don't worry about them anymore. It's not important. They're not an important thing in life. Any other questions or comments?
One of the technique that we can use, that Prabhuji also mentions all the time, is when we are starters and when we start chanting, try to listen instead of worrying about focusing anywhere. Hear the sound. That automatically will do the trick.
Yeah, if you chant out loud enough for you to hear, it focuses your mind more.
One technique I heard is a lot of devotees, they put the earplugs. So even if you are just
okay.
you can hear it.
It sounds in your
I tried it.
Yeah, okay. I've never done
the
it.
mantra are slower than how you're saying. Like, should you say it really fast or?
When you're chanting, you can chant. If you have 16 hours to do it, chant really slowly. It may take you 3 or 4 hours. You don't want to do that because after a while you say I'm tired. So yeah, chanting. Most people that I've seen, they've chanted faster. They've chanted faster. So yeah, it's better. Well, I wouldn't say it's better to chant whatever pace, but most people chant faster. They concentrate and chant, and then they chant distinctly too. They pronounce Krishna's name so well. Yeah.
And Prabhuji is also right, like if you are at home and there are other sounds coming in the home, like from kitchen or TVs on or something,
Yeah.
or kids are, talking,
Yeah.
and then you are also chanting, try to consider, you increase your volume.
Okay.
I mean, like you speak and you increase your volume and then all other sounds will suppress.
So now you know why people chant at 5 o'clock in the morning. You're not tired of noise. Japa time is 5 in the morning. You're still sleeping and not obviously you get those rounds done without any kind of interference. That's why it's there. That's part of the reason. It's also Brahma Muhurta hour is actually the best time of the day in terms of the atmosphere and how it feels.
We can see it ourselves. We chanted
You
the
certainly
morning,
can though.
yeah.
Get to a room, close the door. I've seen people do this, if their eyes, and this has happened. In fact, Haridas Thakur, same Haridas Thakur, responded to Lord Chaitanya about this. And it's in Bhakti Trilogy, the book is called Bhakti Trilogy. And he's saying that if your eyes are, wherever you are, they're so, into looking at other things that distract you from the holy name, you can put a cloth over your head. So you don't see anything. Whatever, you either direct the senses to something that reminds you of Krishna, or you cut off what they do. And I've seen in ISKCON temple, people are chanting, and even their daily pictures there, and they still put a cloth over their head. Because they know what their minds are. These bodies understand why they do that. Because they just want to, their eyes are going somewhere else, even though the daily pictures are on, they're going somewhere else. I don't know where, but they cover their heads that way. They didn't understand. We should be really, really determined to get out of the material. Hopefully whatever we do, we can't really be totally happy here, ever. It doesn't work. Therefore, we should be determined to go. So whatever it takes for this simple process, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, to be done and done according to the instructions that we've been given. We definitely should put in the effort. And if we put in the effort, then Krishna gives us the mercy. We don't have to be pure devotees to go back to the spiritual world. We have to put in the effort. And more effort means, effort is limitless, right? You keep going, trying to do better. And then Krishna decides, Guru pleads your case. This person who is like a lawyer, the time you leave a body, then Krishna decides, all right, you better come. And you worship Tulsi, I have plenty of requests then. Plenty of requests. When Tulsi Maharani says, yes, consider this person, Krishna will not say no. That is the wife of Lord Vishnu, Salagram Shila. That's the wife of Lord Vishnu. She says yes, you're definitely going. So that's why you need to get a picture if you don't have Tulsi. Yeah. Any other comments, questions? Yeah, I'm speaking, but I'm also learning. So learning things are being reminded to me at the same time. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vaishnav Thakur ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Bhakti Astotra Satasisi Maharajangi Sri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhansa Parikshit Astotra Satasisi Maharajangi Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Ramacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki ISKCON founder Acharya Sri Prabhupada Ki Om Shri Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shami Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Mayapur Dham Ki Jagannath-puri Dham Ki Navadvip Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki Jivana Mai Ki Jyoti Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Thy Gaura Premanande. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga.
Jai
भगवान की जय, भोलानाथ महाराज की जय, गोवर्धन की जय।
Very nice, Maharaj. Very nice. Very nice.
Special prayer. You know special prayer? You know that? Okay. Okay, good job.
Good job, guys.
How are the recordings going?
Yeah.
Anything
I might have asked you to do one more thing on one of the